1744 marks the death of Alexander the Great. Death of Alexander the Great is also known as an official end of neoclassical era. This resulted in rise of liberalism in literature, a change from the traditional and set pattern of writing poetries, writing articles, essays, and they started talking about nature, rustic life, and for the first time, literature actually became rural. Yes, we are talking about the pre-Romanticism of 1745 to 1798. Now, many of you must be thinking that I generally show myself in the video. What I'm showing is something different, some cottages, some darkness, some unclear images, and maybe like some scary details, scary and beautiful things. So guys, this is Vineet Pandey and I'm in Kerala, and as I promised that I'll be recording some lectures as literature in Kerala and the series of those topics. I'm going to talk about the most important and the very happening literature known as Gothic literature in pre-Romanticism. So before we go about the Gothic things, Gothic literature and writer, I must tell you this is the beautiful property in Wayanad. It's actually kind of out of Wayanad, like 15-20 kilometers away. And one of my secret hideouts. This is beautiful, this is aesthetic, this is classy. And that one, the yellow one, is my cottage, the last one from the upside. So, as we all know that reading literature is not the only thing in life, and it's a waste if you just read but do not apply. So I started applying in my life, and that's why I find, feel and relate literature everywhere. So I crossed this bridge. If this is visible to you, you may see the same bridge in my few of my other videos related to Kerala, and I came here. So let's get back to the topic. And before we just talk about it, I must tell you, apply literature in your life. Don't just let it be the part of your syllabus. Make it the part of your life, because literature is life, life is literature. So guys, the word Gothic, few people relate it to the barbarian tribe Goths. If you remember, Euripides wrote a tragedy known as Medea. And Medea has a heroine, the queen of Goths, the barbaric tribe. If you remember, Shakespeare wrote Titus Andronicus, and there was also a lady playing the role of a villain. I just missed her name. I think she was also the queen of Goths, Titus Andronicus' wife. So kindly please find out. She was also the queen of Goths. So using the word Goth was actually like related to people those who are fond of bloodshed, people those who are fond of killings in a brutal way, tearing bodies, spilling blood, drinking blood. So it is one of the words which has a direct relation with the word Goth and Gothic. Then it was asked in a question of NetJRF, and then we found that Goth word also has a connection to the Gothic architecture, and Gothic architecture is like medieval ages, talking about the blood drinking Dracula. The references like with dim lights, yellowish lights, surrounded mounts, and the walls in a very red brick style way, red brick Victorian style way. So that Gothic structure, the structure which looks like a horror setting, horror palace, horror haveli. So that's also involved as Gothic. So technically, if they ask you a question that how do we have the word Gothic, always remember the Gothic structure is the first reference and the proper reference which was accepted in those answers. But if they question you that do we have any reference with the word Goth, the tribe and the Gothic, then yes, remember, Goths were the most barbaric tribe. So the queen of Goths, Temora, now I have the name Temora, she is the one who comes from the same tribe, then Medea comes from the same tribe. So technically we got the word Gothic. Now how all of a sudden the pre-romantic people, they started talking about Gothic literature. Remember, the Augustan literature was the age of enlightenment, the literature of sensibility, the literature of mind, the literature with reason and rational attitude. And pre-romantics, they actually developed the imagination concept. I must tell you this thing, I have a keen interest in knowing paranormal activities, in knowing the life in other worlds, other planets, and no doubt being curious, I really want to understand life in its all forms. I know it's very impossible, but still, yesterday I downloaded a lecture on paranormal activist, and I was about to play it, but all of a sudden the surrounding, the wooden surrounding of this place, the same place that I'm showing you right now, it just made me think that, are you crazy? Like, why are you thinking about the same person in this kind of scenario where everything is surrounded, everything is dark, there are a lot of noise of cricket, frogs and other insects which actually invite the rain, and a lot of birds, just noisy, it's very noisy. So why having all this surrounding, having all that background, why I'm watching that particular paranormal activist's video, ghost experts video? What if something turns up? And yes, I cancelled it. That is called willing suspension of disbelief, which was beautifully portrayed by Coleridge. You know, nothing happens. I have seen a lot of videos like that, a lot of movies like that. But all of a sudden in this surrounding, I denied to do it finally, because something was like that, what if? You also being the part of the story, a guy all alone in a forest area, watching those things in the most scary surrounding, and actually became the part of the story. This is called willing suspension of disbelief, and that's what the Gothic writers, they do. But remember, Gothic literature started before Coleridge. Coleridge is the one who just dealt with one point, dealing with willing suspension of disbelief. Now what you have to do is, for exam preparation, not even a single question has been asked in detail of any Gothic literature, any Gothic book. Means you don't have to read Gothic literature in detail, not even the summary. I will suggest you that please read summary. If they haven't asked, that doesn't mean they will never ask. But in the history of NET JRF, MPhil entrance exam, PhD entrance exam, I have not seen even a single question which has been asked from the depth of those Gothic stories. So all you have to remember is, it started with Horace Walpole, the famous writer, son of Prime Minister Robert Walpole, best friend of Thomas Gray. Horace Walpole wrote Castle of Otranto in 1764. After him, Anne Radcliffe, she wrote Mysteries of Udolpho and The Italian, respectively in 1792 and 1796. Remember, I may be wrong. I'm just using my memory, whatever I have read. After this, Matthew Lewis, he wrote a famous work, The Monk, and this was so Gothic that it earned him the name Monk Lewis. People started calling him Monk Lewis. After this, Charles Maturin, he wrote a book around 1820s, Melmoth the Wanderer, another very scary book. Now remember this thing, that there was a question in NET exam, and using these names, The Italian, Mysteries of Udolpho, The Monk, Castle of Otranto, there was one more book, Melmoth the Wanderer, and the question in NET exam was to set them in order. So Melmoth the Wanderer was in Victorians and other ones were in pre-romantics. These writers have written Gothic stories, make a list of them and just set them in order, means mug up their timings. Along with this, John Keats, Pot of Basil or Isabella has the Gothic elements. If you read it, you'll find out that there is a beheading of the head. Then, the famous writer P.B. Shelley's wife, Mary Shelley, her famous work Frankenstein, it has a Gothic reference. Then there are many works where you'll find some Gothic references, like Shakespeare has a lot of Gothic references, killings, having ghosts, souls, supernatural activities, and these are all the part of Gothic structures. So remember, the Gothic structure, the Gothic writings, it emerged in pre-romanticism. Now, I'll be ending this video because there can be an issue of the space in mobile. I just want to say this thing. Have you ever seen any professor of English literature in India who relates life, literature and tries to teach you everywhere he can? Wherever he goes, he tries. If you feel that I'm the first, it becomes your moral responsibility to support me. And through this social media, you can share the video with maximum people to let them know that in India, there is first professor of English literature who relates the Gothic structure and goes for a Gothic video. I actually wanted to go for the haunted places like Bhangar Fort and all to go for this thing, but I couldn't do it. I didn't get the company. So I'm using the beautiful location of Kerala. I'm in love with Kerala. There are beautiful people, the most educated people, and I must say, very decent guys. It never feels that I'm an outsider. So, my regards, my wishes to all the Kerala students, all my other students, and remember, you people are my brothers and sisters. Always remember, I'm there to help you. Thank you so much. May God bless you.